Hello and welcome once again to the Parent Playing Video Games podcast. On today's episode, we're on episode 14, halfway through the teens, where you're going to be looking at Soul Blazer. Soul Blazer came out quite some time ago, as most of the games on here. But fun fact on this one is that this is actually the first time I've played it, even though it's 30-something years old, 32 years old. First time I've ever played it. So definitely one that is not something I would normally play. An old game from quite some time ago. But it looked cool. Has some cool sort of history around it, and I kind of wanted to check it out. And first off, I'm just going to chat a little bit about the old last 2 weeks. So I don't really recall what we did last week or really the weekend before. Oh, I think we had a barbecue. It was fun. From what I remember, whenever it was, the barbecue was fun. Then, normal week stuff. But then last weekend, we did a bunch of stuff. We went to the plant store. That's exciting because, in our new house, this will be our first spring. So we'll get to plant some stuff. And my wife's already got a lot of plants in the house. And we're both pretty excited to get some stuff on the outside, too. Also had family visits. Parents came back into town. So they came and visited us on that day, and then the next day we saw the other side of the family, which was awesome as well. I also took my 3-year-old to the model train show here. It was a ton of fun. Definitely a lot of pressure on the old back, because everything, if you don't know about the model train shows, is they're all kind of built at about 4 feet-ish, maybe 4.5 feet high. So my son, he can't see onto it because he's just too short. So I was a year ago when I took him, I was picking him up, putting him down, and that was a lot. And this year we tested out the carrier, and it still holds him. He's 30 pounds, so I put him in there, and originally had him facing me, and then decided to change to the hip option that the carrier had, and actually worked out really well. I mean, it definitely made my back sore, but I was pretty much carrying him for like 3.5 hours, so you try carrying anything for 3.5 hours, it's gonna wear you down, kind of thing. But I had a lot of fun with that. And then also we went out and we went to the little playground park near us, and we took a kite and we were just like flying that, and it was a lot of fun. The three of us just went out there and just played out, and it was cool because that was the first time we've seen really anyone else at this playground. And there was a father and son playing football, there was a bunch of other kids playing, another group playing, and then us. It was nice to see a lot of people outside and play. So had a lot of fun with that. And he likes chasing after the kite more than flying it, that's for sure. So and then also in the last 2 weeks, what I've been playing, of course, I've been playing Soul Blazer. Actually, I finished it, I want to say Thursday or Friday, and today is Tuesday. So a couple days ago kind of thing, so it's still fresh in the head. I've also, I'm sure a lot of people have been doing this, quite a few people at work, but obviously Fallout's been on Amazon for the last couple weeks, I want to say. And of course, it's brought a lot of new interest in Fallout, the video games. And I did play Fallout 3 a little bit, not much. I played Fallout 4. I don't think I ever really played any of the others. The Fallouts, Bethesda RPGs are not my favorite games. I like them, but I never seem to get, too much into them. But nonetheless, I've been playing Fallout Shelter, the iOS game. I'm not good at it. I think I've started over 3 or 4 times, and I'm not even playing that much. I just don't really know how to survive, but it is what it is. And then after finishing Soul Blazer, I started playing Body Harvest on the N64. I remember, so this one I played, and in the future I'm sure we'll have a chat about that, maybe the next episode. Actually, that's the plan, is hopefully the next episode. We'll see if I can finish it, or at least get far enough. Anyway, I remember that one being not what it is in the slightest. I completely forgot there were vehicles in it, so it's been neat. I guess we'll talk about that one another time. But this episode, all about Soul Blazer. And the main event is Soul Blazer. So, Soul Blazer was released in November 1992 in the North America region. That puts it at about 32 years old. As I said, I have not played it before this. I think I tried it years ago on an emulator, and I don't think I ever really got any further than the first 15 minutes kind of thing. But nonetheless, I wanted to try it out. I don't particularly know why, but hey, we're here now. So it was developed by a company called Quintet. They actually made when I looked at their on their Wikipedia page, they had like 10 games, but I'd heard of like 6 or 7 of them. I'm like, that's pretty good track record. And from what it sounds like, they kind of just disappeared, and no one's really been able to do much with their intellectual property ever since they disappeared. But a couple of the other notable games were ActRaiser and Illusion of Gaia, which I have played both, and I'm 99% sure. I know I beat ActRaiser, and I think I've beaten Illusion of Gaia. If not, I've gotten very close to the end. But ActRaiser has a special kind of place because it was the first game I beat after I started playing World of Warcraft. And I never beat it when I was younger. I had it on the Super Nintendo. And then, yeah, I played World of Warcraft for probably, I don't know, like 6 to 8 years, something like that. And it seems like, from what I remember during that time, that's all I played. So I never really played a game, and I, continued to beat it because World of Warcraft. And then, yeah, so both of those really great games. And it's also part of a kind of like it's not an official, it's like a fan ideology, I think, of a trilogy, of the Soul Blazer trilogy from Quintet. So it's Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and then Terranigma. I think this game has sparked my desire to be like, I wouldn't mind, finishing this trilogy. As I said, I've, played and pretty sure I've beaten Illusion of Gaia, but Terranigma I've never seen. So I'll have to figure out how to play that. I'm sure people can guess, but yeah, I think that'll be something I wouldn't mind playing. Just going through the 3 of those, I think it would be really cool. On to the gameplay, and of course, with the first part of the gameplay is the story. Even though it's 32 spoilers, don't want anything to get spoiled for people. So if you don't want to listen to this part, just scoot on ahead. So the story starts as you're playing as a character, which apparently you don't know his name, but you figure out his name in Illusion of Gaia. So clearly those games are connected in some way. Anyway, you play as a servant to the master, pretty much God is what it sounds like, and you're sent down to a world where everything kind of is imprisoned. And what you find out is that the king and queen of the land wanted to make a deal with Death Toll, who is a demon, pretty much a baddie. And pretty much every soul provided to Death Toll will give them some money. And as you kind of go along, the king changed his mind, but the queen was still down for it. So she was still pushing forward while the king was none too pleased. He wasn't really feeling it anymore. And each area that you visit, you go through a dungeon there. Actually, do you go through 1 or 2 dungeons? Anyway, you go through at least 1 dungeon, maybe 2, and you defeat all the enemies. And each kind of cluster of enemies that you defeat, their little layer that they spawn from changes into like a green tile. And the green tile can do a few things. It can either, change something in the dungeon, so you can maybe unlocks a door so you can get through, or it actually releases someone in the town. So that soul that was trapped is now released. So when you do that, when you go back to town, you can talk to them. They may give you an item. They may kind of lead you to the next area, or they may, just have some flavor text kind of thing. Excuse me. And then as you're releasing the souls, not only the people come back, but you also get the town being rebuilt. So instead of it just being like a woman was returned or released, can't remember, it'll also build her house around her kind of thing, or a well will be built or something along those lines. And the different towns that you're going to be in, it's not just humans. There's like humans and animals. Like in the second area, there's like deer and like woodland folk kind of thing. And then there's plants, and then others, there's mermaids and dolphins and little gnome creatures, all sorts of different things. So kind of it makes it nice because each area has its own little unique kind of style to it. You're not just going from town A to town B to town C sort of thing. They have their own little, flair. So, yeah, it's as I said, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, and then once you defeat the area boss, then you can move on to the next area. So, when you get to them, and most of the bosses I found fairly straightforward, but some the second to last one was tough. But yeah, once you do that, you can move on to the next area, but you can also move back as well. So even if you didn't fully collect everything, you can go back and you're not kind of stuck. It's not like you're locked from going backwards kind of thing. So kind of nice in that sense, and actually required for later on in the game. So you eventually get through all the areas, and eventually you get to the world of evil, and you fight Death Toll. And once Death Toll is defeated, the world is back to normal. Everyone's been, released, and everyone's living their lives. You actually do meet someone in the game, and I'll be honest, I didn't really notice this until the very end, and then I kind of put it together. So I don't know if I just maybe wasn't fully paying attention, or it isn't as obvious. But yeah, so you meet Lisa throughout the game, and you actually fall in love. And at the very end of the game, when everything's all done, you return back to heaven with the master. And a year goes by, and the master pretty much is just like, I know you miss being human and being down there and Lisa, so I can send you back, but you'll have no memory of what happened. Anyway, so Slaver, Blazer is his name, the character. He eventually decides, I'm going to go back down, and it's worth it kind of thing. And you go down, and Lisa sees you and recognizes you, but you don't know who she is. But it's kind of it's almost like a little sweet reunion. And then they become friends, and the idea is that their relationship blossoms and becomes something more as time goes on. So yeah, very kind of like you save the world and everyone lives happily ever after. It's not the most unique story, I would say. Semi-unique, I guess, because I'm trying to think as yes, you save people and you save the world and all that stuff, but I don't remember playing a game really where they had, the souls of those people have been trapped in a sense. So yeah, either way, yeah, still the story is it's decent. It's not crummy, but it's not the best you've ever heard of kind of thing. So as I said, you're playing the game, and you enter in these towns, you enter through the dungeons, you defeat the monsters. So to defeat these monsters, you have a couple ways to do it. So your main attack is a sword. You just swing it, swing, classic kind of thing. And then you can actually hold R and maybe L. I think I was just using R all the time. And when you do that, he kind of holds his sword out straight. Kind of like if you play a Zelda game, Link to the Past, for instance. You hold down the attack button, and he holds it out straight like that. You can do that, but he also strafes. He doesn't turn away. So it's kind of a good, not only, it's actually a good defensive tactic. You can hold that and back up, and you're actually going to be, tapping the enemy in a sense, doing a little bit of damage while backing up. And you can also swing while doing it, so you can get a little bit of an extra damage boost there. So with the swords, you also have some magic as well. And you get all sorts of different types of magic. I mean, with this, I didn't get all the items in the game. Like, I didn't get all the swords, didn't get all the magic, definitely didn't get all the items. Missed quite a few of those. But the magic that I did have, the one that I really liked was actually one of the early ones. It was, like, simple, and it was, decent damage and easy range sort of thing. So, yeah, anyway. So, for the swords, I got all but one, and I'll tell you which one when I go through them. So, Sword of Life, Base Sword, Psycho Sword, and also these are all increasing in damage one by one, and they also increase in level required. So like the first sword, of course, level 1, but the last sword is, I think, level 24 you need to be to equip that. So you can't just like rush through and get the best sword right away kind of thing. I don't think. I'm sure in speedruns they have their tricks. So, anyway, so Sword of Life, base sword, Cycle Sword can paralyze invincible monsters. So that one's kind of nice. There's some monsters that you can't do any damage to, and you hit them with this, and it just pauses them for a second or two. So it gives you a little bit of breathing room. The critical sword, sometimes, just randomly, it just kills an enemy. Doesn't matter if it takes 5 hits, it'll just kill it on the first hit or second hit or something like that. Lucky sword. So for a little bit of a precursor, your magic, when you cast that, requires gems, which drop from enemies. And so the lucky blade, there's 2 types of gems, 2 or 3, where this gives you a higher chance of getting larger gems. So you get more magic points, in a sense, recovered for each enemy that you kill. So you can kind of use magic a little bit more. Zentetsu sword. That one defeats the monsters with armor. So the Cycle Sword, which paralyzes them, this one will actually defeat them. Spirit Sword is same thing, but with spirits, like ghosts and such. Same thing, Cycle Sword can paralyze those ones. This one actually defeats them. Now, Recovery Sword is one I did not find, so I don't know exactly how it works, but based on what I read, it's kind of like a recovery, like HP. So HP will be filled when a monster is defeated. So, I mean, that one, honestly, could have been nice. Could have been nice. Although, at this point in the game, I was doing pretty good. I had a lot of health, so I don't know how much I needed that other than on bosses. And if it's based on when the monster's defeated, not when they're hit, then it wouldn't really do much for me. It would just be throughout the normal fights. And then finally is the Soul Blade. The Soul Blade is the strongest sword in the game. It may or may not be required to actually beat the game, but I would think so based on how I played it. But hey, again, speedrunners have their ways, right? So who knows? Then with the equipment, you have the swords. And then we'll go to the magic next because we'll keep a focus on attacking things. So magic, same thing. There's 8 different ones, and you learn them or you find them kind of thing throughout the game. So the first one's a flame ball. And, again, quick thing for the magic. When you first learn how to use magic, you get almost like a blue orb circling you at a consistent pace and a consistent range. And when you press the magic button, the magic's actually shot out or kind of initiated from that blue orb. So the flame ball shoots a fireball in one direction, the direction that you're facing. So let's say that orb is above you and you press it, it shoots from above you, and let's say you're looking left, it'll shoot left. And if it's below you, it'll still shoot left. It's always shooting in the direction that you're facing. So the light arrow is the second one, and this is the one that I like the most. It's similar to the flame ball, but it shoots it in all 4 directions, so up, down, left, right. So instead of it just being the direction you're facing, it shoots from all. So it gives you a little bit more versatility because now you're shooting it, you don't have to face in a specific direction. And I think it does more damage as well, but it does cost more gems. So kind of a give and take kind of thing. So Magic Flare, that one I didn't really use, and also I didn't actually get a lot of these spells, but this one I didn't really use. It says powers collected when the button is pressed. I don't really know what that means. Maybe it would have helped during some of the bosses, but yeah. Rotator is when you hold it down, the orb now goes really quick in a circle around you, and it kind of has a almost like a rattlesnake tail, if you know what that looks like. A ball, smaller ball, smaller ball, smaller ball, smaller ball kind of thing going around you. And if it hits enemies, it does some pretty good damage. But there's 2 things with it. One, you have to be close to the enemies, and they're not slow. They can move pretty quick. And 2, it chews through your gems. Like when you hold it, it just goes, it just counts it down kind of thing. So very expensive, but also does really good damage. It's kind of almost like a glass cannon kind of thing. Like, you know. So Spark Bomb, it lays mines that explode. I did not find this one, so that is the description that I read. Same thing with the next one, Flame Pillar. Pillars of fire rise around you. Now this one costs 20 gems. The next most expensive spell that I remember was 8. And then 4 to 1. Like, spells don't cost a lot. But this one costs a massive amount. It's kind of a bummer. I didn't get it, so I don't actually know what it looks like, but sounds like it would be quite the powerful attack. Tornado, same thing. Didn't get this one. Sounds like it's someone's tornadoes. Would be also kind of cool to see. But the last one is Phoenix. Now, this one I did get because, again, this might be one of those it's required for the end of the game thing. maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is. So what it does is when you attack, a phoenix flies out and kind of shoots in front of you. So it's it's a very powerful attack. From when I fought Death Toll, because you get it pretty much right at Death Toll, that's what's used to defeat him. So he's up above the screen, you shoot, and it shoots across the screen. I don't know if you can get close enough to hit him with your sword, but I didn't really try because I had this. So didn't really need to worry about it. And that one costs very little, and in that fight, you actually get quite a lot of gem drops, so you don't have to have a lot saved up. And just a quick thing, with the gems, let's say you're working, you're getting there, you have 250, you're good, you haven't used too much magic, but if you die, you lose all your gems. And you can't really farm enemies in this game. There's some enemies that will come back, they'll respawn, but most enemies, once you defeat the layer that they're associated with, and it could be anywhere from 4 to maybe 10 enemies for that layer, once that's done, they're done. So you can run out of gems, and then there's only one area in the game, other than Death Toll, that I can think of, that actually required gems. But where you needed it, there were some chests, and the chests dropped 50, 80, 100 gems. And that was more than enough to get through the area. So I feel like even though they are semi-needed, when you need them, the game does a very smart thing, because it would be very frustrating to get there to find out you need, gems, and maybe you're going to go through 50 or 60. You don't know, and then all of a sudden you have to go somewhere else to try and farm them. And it's really hard to farm them because there's so few enemies left in each world after you kind of defeat the final or the area boss. So, if you don't have a stockpile, then that would be really crappy. It would kind of soft lock you into that. So, so it's annoying when you die, you lose the gems. At one point, I died, and I think I had like 1,500 gems. Now, it didn't really matter because even in the final boss, when I needed gems, I never missed those gems. It wasn't a big deal. So, okay, so that's swords and magic. That's our attacking things. Next, we'll go over armor, which is defense. So these ones, same sort of things as swords. I don't believe there's a level requirement, but they just go up and up and up. These ones, I did find all of these, which I'm pretty happy about finding all of those. And I only used a guide one time in this game, and it was after I took quite a break from it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to restart it. And it's when I started playing it again a week or so ago. I didn't want to just start all over because I knew I wanted to do it for the podcast. I'm like, well, if I start all over, I might not finish it. But what I did was I had to look up in the guide because I just didn't know where I was and who I had talked to and what I had to do next. So that was a tricky thing, actually. I know this is quite the segue from armor talk, but that was a tricky thing about the game in that there was... it was tricky to... I've said tricky like 9 times. It was difficult to actually continue playing the game unless you played it with a short break. If you were, let's say, playing this, once a week, even that might be kind of a stretch because there's not really much to it. It's a very classic JRPG. You have to talk to the NPCs to actually figure out what to do next, which would be annoying each time you had to play to go and talk to maybe a dozen different NPCs sort of thing. So either way, back to the armor. So iron armor, simple armor, it's your base armor. The ice armor, more, and all of these, as I said, they increase the defense. The ice armor, you can cross fire without damage. So these ones are kind of, I don't want to say it's a Metroidvania aspect. It's like Metroidvania light kind of thing, as in like, you need these items to progress in the game. However, there's no real backtracking to get them to go, oh, I have to go over here. Oh, now I've done that. Now I can go over in these 2 areas. Oh, that's opened up this. Okay. There's none of that. It's more of just that if you don't find the ice armor, you cannot progress in the game. So they're not hidden, really. They're very obvious sort of thing. There is no like, oh, did I miss this? Did I miss that? Nah, you'll find it pretty quick. So ice armor does that. Bubble armor. That one of the areas is actually underwater. So without the bubble armor, you can't walk underwater. You'll have no air. Gives it bubble. Magic armor. This one isn't really story stuff, but it cuts how many gems are needed for magic in half. So as I said earlier, if something needs 4, now it needs 2. So if you had that and a lucky blade, you could just be like a magician. You could just use all the spells because your casting is less and you get them more often. So kind of an interesting idea. I wonder how that would actually work for like the end game kind of thing. Instead of using the swords and armors that you're getting, you just keep your distance and use a lot of spells. That'd be an interesting idea. Anyway, Mystic Armor. So this one, a lot of games you get hit. You have those invincibility flames, you flash for a second. This one increases the time frame of those invincibility frames. So it gives you a little bit more of a forgiving experience sort of thing. Light armor, you get no damage from weaker enemies. That one I had, and I feel like I got rid of it pretty quick. I found the next armor quick, but I mean, I could see if you went back to older areas, that's kind of nice, because then it's, you don't have to worry, but I never felt a need to go back to the older dungeons. I was going back to the beginning, the first area, to get a medical herb, which gives you kind of like some extra healing, a second life of sorts. So that was the only time I went back to the older area. Never to actually fight any enemies, though. So I'm not sure when. And again, all the enemies are gone. Doesn't matter. Not sure where that comes in, but elemental armor protects you from damage zones. So this one seems to not make sense. But I vaguely remember in one of the areas there was like spikes on the ground. And if you walked on them, of course, you get damaged. But with the elemental armor, it protects you from that. I don't know why it's called elemental armor to protect you from spikes. But I guess spikes are an element. It could be steel. Steel, is that an element? Iron? Iron, that's an element. And then the final armor is soul armor. So just like the soul blade, strongest, best, and it allows you to walk in space, which is also important because the final area, the World of Evil, is in space. Without that, I'm guessing you would not be able to do it. I never tried taking it off, to be honest with you. But yeah, so yeah, definitely soul armor, soul blade for the final fight with Phoenix. That is, that's the one they want you to do kind of thing. And then finally, we have items. So with the items, there's a bunch of them. And when I went and I looked at the list, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I do not know what half of these are. I just didn't find that many. So I have some personal notable ones. One of the ones that you find early on in the game is the Dream Rod. And this one's cool because some of the NPCs that you encounter are asleep. Because, not everyone has to be awake for you. So when you see them asleep, you can use the Dream Rod and lets you see in their dreams. So that could help you find a secret item, or it could help you progress the story. You learn more about different characters. That one was pretty cool. And it was nice because so many of the times you have games where, in this case, let's say you get the Dream Rod in, I think it's the first, maybe second area. But you get it in that area. In so many games, you get the item in the area, and that's where you use it. And then you never use it again. I used the Dream Rod up until pretty much the last area in the game even. So it was kind of cool that you always had to, think, oh, right, the Dream Rod. Oh, I'll go use that. Oh, that'll help me find something like that. So the next one that I had was Medical Herb. I mentioned it earlier. It gives you a second life. So only if it's equipped. So you can have only one item equipped at a time. So if you have the Medical Herb equipped, when you go down to 0 health, it restores pretty much all the health of your health bar. So kind of like a fairy in a lot of Zelda games, but it restores all your health, not just, I think, in those at 7 hearts or something like that. But if you don't have it equipped, you just die. So, yeah. There's another one with the Medical Herb. It was called Strange Bottle. Same sort of idea, but instead of your health, I guess, you still die, but your gems don't go away, but it's a single use as well. So if you have it equipped, your gems don't disappear, which will be nice. And then then it uses it, but you keep your gems. So it's okay. I would prefer the Medical Herb. I'd rather stay alive than just have my gems. Because again, I didn't use too much magic other than when I needed to. And then there's the Power, Shield, and Super Bracelets. So Power increases damage, Shield increases defense, and Super Bracelet, which I did not find, it does both. So it increases your damage and your defense. That would have been really nice in the final bosses. Apparently you get it right before the second final boss, and that boss was the hardest one in the game. I think it was harder than the final boss even. So I definitely would have enjoyed having that. That's for sure. And then there's some unique items. There's the red hot ball, red hot mirror, red hot stick from different areas in the game. That one is where you're able to unlock Phoenix. That's how you get the spell. So that's why I don't think you need it, but maybe. But pretty much when you get the Soul Blade, no, then the Zentetsu sword or Spirit sword, that's where you can go back to the older areas where there's the enemies that are in armor or the ghosts, where you can now defeat them, which then may unlock a chest, which then has something like the red hot ball kind of thing. So that's, again, I don't know if you need it, but I think if you didn't, it would be really hard. But yeah. And then finally, the last sort of notable set of items are the stones. So there's one in each area for a total of 6. Once you get all 6, that allows you to get into the world of evil. So, oh, you do need Phoenix. I was just thinking in the story because I unlocked the world of evil, but the castle, like where Death Toll is, doesn't appear until you've summoned Phoenix. So you do need those 3 secret items. Those ones I had to look up. That was the other thing. And to be honest with you, it was like 9:45, 10 o'clock. And I'm like, I know I'm close to the end of the game because I have so many of the items. I have the best armor. I have the best sword. And I'm like, I'm so close. And I'm in the world of evil where I know the final boss is. I'm like, I know that I'm close. And I'm like, I just want to finish her. You know, sometimes you get in a game where you're like, I just want to get it done kind of thing. So that was where I was at with that. Just wanted to finish it up. So that's all the normal items. So your weapons and magic and, just items, armor. And then you also get souls, and those are kind of like permanent upgrades of sorts. So there's 5 different souls. The magician allows you to cast spells. Light, it creates light in dark places, so it gives you like a ring of light around you in a pitch black area. Shield protects you from magma. Detection allows you to see invisible enemies, and reality allows you to see invisible corridors. I didn't know about the reality one, and I actually found an invisible corridor, and then what I did was I'm like, oh, if there's one here, there's probably some elsewhere in this area. And I was able to do that, and I was able to actually find a bunch of hidden chests as well before I had that. I don't think it advanced me. I don't think I was able to, ooh, I'm all sneaky kind of thing. I just was kind of ahead of it, and then once I got that, I'm like, oh, okay. And then I found more invisible chests with it too, which was nice. And then the last thing I want to talk about on the gameplay kind of thing are the locations. Just going to touch on these a little bit, and they're kind of the classic RPG gaming locations kind of thing. Grass Valley, that's that nice gentle beginning area. Greenwood is a forest area. St. El's is a underwater area. Luckily, there's no swimming. As long as you have the bubble armor, you just walk around it. Nothing changes. It's just there's a big bubble around you. Mountain of Souls is a snowy and mountain area. Dr. Leo's lab. Now, this one's kind of cool. It's actually Dr. Leo. I didn't talk about Dr. Leo. I just realized. So Dr. Leo was kind of forced by the king and queen to invent contraptions that brought the evils into the world. So he was kind of forced to do that. So you eventually get to Dr. Leo's lab. You're trying to... He's one of the biggest people in the game. You're trying to rescue... Why didn't I talk about him? Anyway. So you're trying to rescue him. You get to his lab, and you kind of explore. And as you're unlocking more souls, you get to learn more. Again, that aspect of the game, you unlock the souls. You go back, you learn more, you do more. I really like that because it's just a steady drip of progress and story on the game rather than like, here's a 10-minute cutscene and here's 45 minutes of gameplay. It was like in the sense of like, well, here's a 1-minute cutscene and here's 5 minutes of gameplay. That was the whole game. So after the lab, you go to Magrid Castle, which is, of course, where the queen is and the king is. And then finally, the World of Evil, which is where Death Toll is. So, yeah, again, the areas, nothing really too unique about them. Surprised there isn't a desert area, because that usually has something. But, yeah, not in this one. So, but, yeah, I think of the areas, I like the Grass Valley and Dr. Leo's lab. Those are my favorite. And then, yeah, with the swords, equipment, all that stuff, I mean, the best. Soul Blade, Soul Armor, Phoenix. And then I use the power bracelet pretty much all the time. I just did more damage. So yeah. And on to the music. So the music on this one, composer is Yukihide Takakawa. And it's pretty good music. It is a little bit more on the simpler side. Yeah, this game was in '92, and it's tough because a lot of the Super Nintendo games, the music benchline that I have is like Final Fantasy 4 and 6, and just from everything that I've played more recently, especially for the podcast, the games back then, they that is a high benchmark. A lot of the music in the games is good. It's just not even close to that. But this one I quite like. As I said, a little more simple. And I would say about maybe a quarter of the music is like really good, and the rest is just like, yeah, it's okay, kind of thing. It's weird. It's not a very balanced soundtrack. But the ones that I really quite like. So, and first up on that music is Lonely Town. This song plays every time you're in one of the towns, and so you hear it a lot. But the intro music that I had on the podcast is a version after you've beaten the boss. So it's called Lively Town on that one. But this one, I don't know what it is, but it's catchy. It's simple, gets in my head, and I hum it still regularly when I'm not playing it. So definitely a song that I like if it's still stuck in my head. Then we have Tropical Islands. I like this one because of the weird like trumpet kind of sound and drums. It's punchy, it's a good song to defeat the monsters to, and it kind of pumps you up. It gets the adrenaline moving of sorts kind of thing, as much as the song on the Super Nintendo can. And then finally I have on my list as Ode to Lisa. This one changed it up. The previous songs, they've been more lively, more, actiony. This one is very calm, and it's young during story moment, and it kind of reminds you of a couple of Chrono Trigger songs, and I just really like how gentle it is. It's very soft and gentle. It's nice. As for the time commitment, I would say, and again, it's tough because I did have a pretty big break. I mean, this was like weeks, if not months, of a break between when I first started it to when I picked it up again. But I would say it's about 10 to 12 hours to beat it. I think that's a solid amount of time, especially nowadays. And I was listening to another podcast, and they're saying it's like, it's kind of nice to be able to play games for half an hour, 45 minutes, just at a time. There's no big commitment. So a game like this, yeah, you could play for 45 minutes to an hour at a time, and take a couple weeks to beat it, and you're good to go kind of thing. You're not in this epic quest. And according to How Long to Beat, the main story is 10 hours, and completionist is 13. So I was pretty much smack dab in the middle of the two of those. As I said, I'm pretty sure 10 to 12 is probably where I was at. On the speedrun side of things, there's kind of like a 3.5 categories from what I can tell. So there's any percent and 100%. Those are our classic categories. Any percent, beat the game as quick as possible. No, doesn't look like there's any big glitches in it from what I can tell. Or if there is, they're all accepted across all categories. And then, of course, 100%, which is beat it with all the items. Then there's low percent and low percent herbs. The only difference is in the herbs one, you can have the medical herbs versus it's not allowed in the other. And I think the big difference between any percent and low percent is low percent, you can only get certain items. You can't get as many as you want. That's any percent. Any percents generally follow the same guide and be like, oh, well, you're only going to get these 7 items. Whereas low percent is like, you can only get these 5 items or something like that. So pretty much everyone runs the any percent. There is very few runs in the other categories. So with that, any percent, the leader on that is Le Hulk. The Hulk in French, I'm guessing, at 1 hour, 34 minutes and 3 seconds. And then on the 100% side is Namefaker 89 with 2 hours, 46 and 35. So it's over an hour different. It's almost twice the length for the 100%, which makes it kind of nice. So many times an any percent to 100% is, let's say, what is it? Maybe an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 28 minutes. Like, oh, well, what's the difference kind of thing? I'm sure there is a difference. And the people that run those games would be able to explain that way better than I. So there's one more thing, actually, I want to mention about the speedrun. So this game, I think the reason I played it some time ago, as I'm thinking about it now, is because of this, I guess situation of sorts. So this is what happened was in 2016. There was a young guy. He was 32 at the time. I think his name was Everhate, who passed away unexpectedly. Was just kind of out of the blue. It sounds like. And one thing that I remember, there's a tournament that kind of started up, and it looks like RPG Limit Break, a Twitch channel, which highly recommend if you're interested in RPGs of any age, really. But mostly old stuff. But I know I took a look, and it looks like every year, at least up until 2021, I don't know if they've done it since, but they've been doing a tournament where anyone is welcome to run in the game, and it's GL and or Blame Everhate, which I guess was something that in the small community of the Soul Blazer speedrunning was something that they would say on a regular basis. And I do want to mention a special shout out to Everhate on his speedrun, is that he got it at 1 hour 40 minutes and 8 seconds, and that was 9 years ago, which of course was about around the time when he had passed away, sort of thing. So I just think it's really cool that the community came together, and they continue to, and it's something that I think really drew my attention to speedrunning. That and the Games Done Quick charity tournaments that happen twice a year, and all the other stuff associated with it, is that the people genuinely, they're all in it just for quite literally the love of the game, and they're all there to enjoy and have fun and share the knowledge, and it's a very welcoming community. And I don't particularly run speedrunning games, but it's something that I quite like. Maybe one day I'll get deeper into it, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I think it's important for people to know about that, and kind of again explaining about the speedrun community and how good it is. It seems how welcoming. All right, our last category is that kiddable option kiddable category. How kiddable it is. There it is. So I know I kind of say the same stuff on each one. I'm like, oh yeah, I think it's pretty big. This one actually I think will be a lot of fun as a kid. The controls are dead easy. Up, down, left, right goes in those directions. It is a challenging game, but whenever you die, it's not like it really is that punishing. It takes you maybe a minute or two to get back to it. So you're not having to trudge through and have random encounters or anything like that. And in fact, as long as you've defeated the monsters for all the layers up to the area where you need to go back, you usually just walk straight to it. You don't have to, fight a bunch of enemies again, lose all your health, and die in the same spot. Now you get back, you're probably going to be at full or very close to full health, so makes it a little bit easier. And also, a lot of times when you hit those layer buttons, it kind of opens up a shortcut back to the beginning, which then you can use to get back to where you were quicker, kind of thing. So again, very forgiving even when you do die. But then it's funny because when you do die, the master says something along the line like, don't rush, you'll be okay. And it's very true. If you're rushing around in the game, you're gonna die. But if you take your time and you kind of position yourself in a spot and you use that hold the R trick to move around a little bit, you can usually defeat the enemies fairly quickly, because they're not smart in the slightest. So they'll come around to a corner and they'll walk into the wall rather than going around and coming after you. But your sword is big enough and it has an arc that you can kind of hit them through the wall. So there's definitely ways to get around the difficulty in that sense. Although, as I did said, the second to last boss was really hard. Now, if I had maybe looked around and I had found that super bracelet, I think is what it was, where it does both the defense and the attack, because I was always on the attack, so when I would get hit, I would get hit for a lot more. But if I had that would have made it probably substantially much easier. So it's, again, as I always say, you can practice and get good. You can find all the items. So yeah, that makes a big difference. And as I said, yeah, finding more items is going to be a better way. I didn't always have a medical herb in stock, even though I could easily go get one, because very quickly in the first area, you're able to talk to like a shopkeeper, and all they sell is medical herbs. So, and they're like, oh, since you rescued me, I'll give you one for free. And they'll do that every single time you ask. if you have one, you can't stock up on them. You can't have like 20 in your inventory. You can only have one at a time. But yeah, there's definitely ways to make it easier to have those, and just being conscious of where you're at in the fight. And if your health is low, you're like, okay, equip the medical herb because you're probably going to get hit again, get hit, and then equip back onto the power bracelet, and then you're good to go, kind of thing. When it comes to the availability of this, now a lot of the games, if not all the games that we've talked about so far, have been available either as new games or on modern console in some way, whether that's through the Nintendo Switch Online, whether that's through like PlayStation Plus or something like that. This one, though, is not the easiest to play. From what I can tell, it's actually only ever had the single release on the Super Nintendo, and I did take a look on eBay because I did read in the Wikipedia stuff. Only like 270,000 of these games were ever sold across all three markets. So Japan, North America, and Europe. I think North America had like 50,000 games or something like that. Japan had the most at 200. So if you want to get a cartridge, you can, but just the cartridges are anywhere from $100 to $200. And that is today. I looked, and it's April 23rd, 2024. So who knows what they're going to be like in the future. But for a 10-hour game, that if you actually want to play it and not just being a collector, that is a lot of money to go up for a pretty small game. So I played it via emulation because, of course, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a cartridge. And funny is that I actually started playing it on, I have an Anbernic little emulation device of sorts. It's fine, it works well, but it's kind of small. And then after I got my PlayStation Portal, I'm like, well, wouldn't it be nice if I could do that on my Switch? And turns out, to some degree, I can play it on my Switch. Don't worry about it. Really quite nice to play on there. And even then as well, it was crazy because at one point I docked it. I beat the game. I docked it onto the TV, and I have a 65-inch TV. So playing a Super Nintendo game on a 65-inch TV is awesome. Like, it's really, really cool. Like, it actually looked very good still. It didn't look like it was blurry or anything like that. I thought it looked fantastic. But yeah, it was that was the only way I could think about playing it. So if anyone is interested in playing it, that's probably going to be your best bet, is to figure out how to do that kind of thing. But yeah, trying to actually buy a cartridge would be a very expensive endeavor for sure. That's going to wrap it up. So let's talk about the score on this. I think I talked fairly positively about it, gave it good praise. I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10, which I think is very impressive considering I never played it and it came out 32 years ago. So I don't have the nostalgia glasses on where kind of that's a point or two for being, that much better, because I remember back in the day and I really enjoyed playing the game. And I would definitely recommend it. And I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I kind of not necessarily want to play it again, but I could see myself playing this again because a couple things. I mean, I beat it in 10 to 12 hours. When I was looking around at the Ever Hate stuff and learning more about the tournament, and he actually created a guide that people still use to this day for learning how to speedrun. And something like that, like I could see myself being able to do this. And it said, even on your first run, if you follow the guide, you're probably going to beat it in 4, maybe 5 hours, which I think is very impressive to say, hey, I'm going to speedrun a game. It's going to take me 4 or 5 hours kind of thing. So maybe one day that's how I'll play it again kind of thing. I'll find a guide and follow along because it'd be kind of cool to learn some of the tricks. And also, I think if I had played this back when it came out, I would have loved it, because I remember really enjoying Illusion of Gaia and JRPGs on the Super Nintendo. That's where my love for them kind of blossomed, and so I mean, having another one there would have been great. As I said, really recommend it. It's not too long, and it's pretty easy to get into. And that be all of it, everyone. Thank you very much for listening. This one, as I said, it was fun. I enjoyed it and would recommend it. Gonna do another episode in 2 weeks. Gonna really try and stick to that. The only thing, I may shuffle it 1 week. I'm not sure yet. Just because life is happening and if I shuffled it, my week that I record would be a little bit less busy kind of thing. So, but either way, 2 weeks, maybe 3. But either way, we're gonna do that. I'm hoping to do Body Harvest, but if not, I'll do something else. I'll figure something out. We'll see where I get with Body Harvest after over the next week or two. See where I'm at with that. And then I know the moment everyone has been waiting for, the dad joke. What did the T-Rex use to cut wood? A dino saw. Dinosaurs are great. My son loves them. Thank you very much. And as always, give someone, your loved ones, a hug. Thanks. Bye.